Human rights of all migrant workers and members of their families. Part 3, Human rights of all migrant workers and members of their families. Article 8, 1. Migrant workers and members of their families shall be free to leave any state, including their state of origin. This right shall not be subject to any restrictions except those that are provided by law, are necessary to protect national security, public order, order public, public health or morals or the rights and freedoms of others, and are consistent with the other rights recognized in the present part of the Convention. 2. Migrant workers and members of their families shall have the right at any time to enter and remain in their state of origin. Article 9, The right to life of migrant workers and members of their families shall be protected by law. Article 10, No migrant worker or member of his or her family shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. Article 11, 1. No migrant worker or member of his or her family shall be held in slavery or servitude. 2. No migrant worker or member of his or her family shall be required to perform forced or compulsory labor. 3. Paragraph 2 of the present article shall not be held to preclude, in states where imprisonment with hard labor may be imposed as a punishment for a crime, the performance of hard labor in pursuance of a sentence to such punishment by a competent court. 4. For the purpose of the present article, the term forced or compulsory labor shall not include a. Any work or service not referred to in paragraph 3 of the present article normally required of a person who is under detention in consequence of a lawful order of a court or of a person during conditional release from such detention. b. Any service exacted in cases of emergency or calamity threatening the life or well-being of the community. c. Any work or service that forms part of normal civil obligations so far as it is imposed also on citizens of the state concerned. Article 12. 1. Migrant workers and members of their families shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right shall include freedom to have or to adopt a religion or belief of their choice and freedom either individually or in community with others and in public or private to manifest their religion or belief in worship, observance, practice, and teaching. 2. Migrant workers and members of their families shall not be subject to coercion that would impair their freedom to have or to adopt a religion or belief of their choice. 3. Freedom to manifest one's religion or belief may be subject only to such limitations as are prescribed by law and are necessary to protect public safety, order, health or morals or the fundamental rights and freedoms of others. 4. States parties to the present convention undertake to have respect for the liberty of parents, at least one of whom is a migrant worker, and, when applicable, legal guardians to ensure the religious and moral education of their children in conformity with their own convictions. Article 13. 1. Migrant workers and members of their families shall have the right to hold opinions without interference. 2. Migrant workers and members of their families shall have the right to freedom of expression. This right shall include freedom to seek, receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers, either orally, in writing or in print, in the form of art or through any other media of their choice. 3. The exercise of the right provided for in paragraph 2 of the present article carries with it special duties and responsibilities. It may therefore be subject to certain restrictions, but these shall only be such as are provided by law and are necessary. A. For respect of the rights or reputation of others. B. For the protection of the national security of the states concerned or of public order, order public, or of public health or morals. C. For the purpose of preventing any propaganda for war. D. For the purpose of preventing any advocacy of national, racial or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence. Article 14. No migrant worker or member of his or her family shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his or her privacy, family, home, correspondence or other communications, or to unlawful attacks on his or her honor and reputation. Each migrant worker and member of his or her family shall have the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Article 15. No migrant worker or member of his or her family shall be arbitrarily deprived of property, whether owned individually or in association with others, where, under the legislation in force in the state of employment, the assets of a migrant worker or a member of his or her family are expropriated in whole or in part. The person concerned shall have the right to fair and adequate compensation. Article 16. 1. Migrant workers and members of their families shall have the right to liberty and security of person. 2. Migrant workers and members of their families shall be entitled to effective protection by the state against violence, physical injury, threats, and intimidation, whether by public officials or by private individuals, groups, or institutions. 3. Any verification by law enforcement officials of the identity of migrant workers or members of their families shall be carried out in accordance with procedure established by law. 4. Migrant workers and members of their families shall not be subjected individually or collectively to arbitrary arrest or detention. They shall not be deprived of their liberty except on such grounds and in accordance with such procedures as are established by law. 5. Migrant workers and members of their families who are arrested shall be informed at the time of arrest as far as possible in a language they understand of the reasons for their arrest, and they shall be promptly informed in a language they understand of any charges against them. 6. Migrant workers and members of their families who are arrested or detained on a criminal charge shall be brought promptly before a judge or other officer authorized by law to exercise judicial power and shall be entitled to trial within a reasonable time or to release. It shall not be the general rule that while awaiting trial they shall be detained in custody, but release may be subject to guarantees to appear for trial at any other stage of the judicial proceedings and, should the occasion arise, for the execution of the judgment. 7. When a migrant worker or a member of his or her family is arrested or committed to prison or custody pending trial or is detained in any other manner, a. The consular or diplomatic authorities of his or her state of origin or of a state representing the interests of that state shall, if he or she so requests, be informed without delay of his or her arrest or detention and of the reasons therefor. b. The person concerned shall have the right to communicate with the said authorities. Any communication by the person concerned to the said authorities shall be forwarded without delay, and he or she shall also have the right to receive communications sent by the said authorities without delay. c. The person concerned shall be informed without delay of this right and of rights deriving from relevant treaties, if any, applicable between the states concerned, to correspond and to meet with representatives of the said authorities and to make arrangements with them for his or her legal representation. 8. Migrant workers and members of their families who are deprived of their liberty by arrest or detention shall be entitled to take proceedings before a court, in order that that court may decide without delay on the lawfulness of their detention and order their release if the detention is not lawful. When they attend such proceedings, they shall have the assistance, if necessary without cost to them, of an interpreter, if they cannot understand or speak the language used. 9. Migrant workers and members of their families who have been victims of unlawful arrest or detention shall have an enforceable right to compensation. Article 17. 1. Migrant workers and members of their families who are deprived of their liberty shall be treated with humanity and with respect for the inherent dignity of the human person and for their cultural identity. 2. Accused migrant workers and members of their families shall, save in exceptional circumstances, be separated from convicted persons and shall be subject to separate treatment appropriate to their status as unconvicted persons. Accused juvenile persons shall be separated from adults and brought as speedily as possible for adjudication. 3. Any migrant worker or member of his or her family who is detained in a state of transit or in a state of employment for violation of provisions relating to migration shall be held, in so far as practicable, separately from convicted persons or persons detained pending trial. 4. During any period of imprisonment in pursuance of a sentence imposed by a court of law, The essential aim of the treatment of a migrant worker or a member of his or her family shall be his or her reformation and social rehabilitation. Juvenile offenders shall be separated from adults and be accorded treatment appropriate to their age and legal status. 5. During detention or imprisonment, migrant workers and members of their families shall enjoy the same rights as nationals to visits by members of their families. 6. Whenever a migrant worker is deprived of his or her liberty, the competent authorities of the state concerned shall pay attention to the problems that may be posed for members of his or her family, in particular for spouses and minor children. 7. Migrant workers and members of their families who are subjected to any form of detention or imprisonment in accordance with the law in force in the state of employment or in the state of transit shall enjoy the same rights as nationals of those states who are in the same situation. 8. If a migrant worker or a member of his or her family is detained for the purpose of verifying any infraction of provisions related to migration, he or she shall not bear any costs arising therefrom. Article 18. 1. Migrant workers and members of their families shall have the right to equality with nationals of the state concerned before the courts and tribunals. In the determination of any criminal charge against them or of their rights and obligations in a suit of law, they shall be entitled to a fair and public hearing by a competent, independent and impartial tribunal established by law. 2. Migrant workers and members of their families who are charged with a criminal offense shall have the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty according to law. 3. In the determination of any criminal charge against them, migrant workers and members of their families shall be entitled to the following minimum guarantees. A. To be informed promptly and in detail in a language they understand of the nature and cause of the charge against them. B. To have adequate time and facilities for the preparation of their defense and to communicate with counsel of their own choosing. C. To be tried without undue delay. D. To be tried in their presence and to defend themselves in person or through legal assistance of their own choosing. To be informed, if they do not have legal assistance, of this right, and to have legal assistance assigned to them. In any case where the interests of justice so require and without payment by them in any such case if they do not have sufficient means to pay. E. To examine or have examined the witnesses against them and to obtain the attendance and examination of witnesses on their behalf under the same conditions as witnesses against them. F. To have the free assistance of an interpreter if they cannot understand or speak the language used in court. G. Not to be compelled to testify against themselves or to confess guilt. 4. In the case of juvenile persons, the procedure shall be such as will take account of their age and the desirability of promoting their rehabilitation. 5. Migrant workers and members of their families convicted of a crime shall have the right to their conviction and sentence being reviewed by a higher tribunal according to law. 6. When a migrant worker or a member of his or her family has, by a final decision, been convicted of a criminal offense and when subsequently his or her conviction has been reversed or he or she has been pardoned on the ground that a new or newly discovered fact shows conclusively that there has been a miscarriage of justice, the person who has suffered punishment as a result of such conviction shall be compensated according to law, unless it is proved that the non-disclosure of the unknown fact in time is wholly or partly attributable to that person. 7. No migrant worker or member of his or her family shall be liable to be tried or punished again for an offense for which he or she has already been finally convicted or acquitted in accordance with the law and penal procedure of the state concerned. Article 19. 1. No migrant worker or member of his or her family shall be held guilty of any criminal offense on account of any act or omission that did not constitute a criminal offense under national or international law at the time when the criminal offense was committed. Nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time when it was committed. If, subsequent to the commission of the offense, provision is made by law for the imposition of a lighter penalty, he or she shall benefit thereby. 2. Humanitarian considerations related to the status of a migrant worker, in particular with respect to his or her right of residence or work, should be taken into account in imposing a sentence for a criminal offense committed by a migrant worker or a member of his or her family.